Hello, hello, and welcome to Deliberate Practice with Amy.
And Jamie.
I am Amy DeSmit. I will be running this practice with Jamie today. I am a relational therapist out of Philadelphia. I work with individuals and couples, and excited to get into some practice today with you, Jamie.
Yes, thank you. I'm Jamie, co-hosting with Amy. I'm a family therapist in Philadelphia.
So we are continuing with our emotion-focused therapy practice. Today, our skill is going to be empathic affirmation and validation. I don't think either of us have done this skill yet.
I don't think so either.
Do you want to read the skill criteria?
Sure. So looks like we have 3 criteria here. The first, therapist responses capture the depth and intensity of present experiencing. Criteria 2, therapist's responses deepen and affirm, but do not speculate or push beyond client current experiencing. And 3, therapist uses a soft, gentle, but affirming voice.
Okay. So those 3 criteria we're going to try to meet as we respond in practice. I will be the therapist today, if that feels good for you.
Sounds great.
And I think we could just jump in.
I just can't believe the direction our country is taking right now. Watching the news makes me so angry. My acting is just so good.
I almost had it and I had to let it out. I
know. It's okay. It's okay. Okay. You're probably expecting me to start with like a softer affect, but like I came in ready to go. All right. I just can't believe the direction our country is taking right now. Watching the news makes me so angry.
Yeah. And I hear you're really angry. There's a lot of anger you have about what's going on in our country right now, which makes a lot of sense.
Great. Checking now to the criteria. I felt as though you really, you said like very angry. You really honed in on that anger that I was feeling, and that met criteria 1, capturing the depth and intensity of my emotional experience that I was having. Criteria 2, deepen and affirming, just really telling me that that reaction that I was having was understandable. And criteria 3, felt your voice was, soft and gentle, but also very affirming. I really felt as though my emotional experience was affirmed, just based even on your tone of voice.
Nice. Okay.
How did that feel for you?
Good. A little choppy. I think I'd like to try it again.
Okay. I just can't believe the direction our country is taking right now. Watching the news makes me so angry.
Yeah. It's really understandable that you're feeling angry given all that's going on in our country right now.
Great. Checking out the criteria. Capturing the depth and intensity of my experience. I felt that you, again, captured that anger, that intense anger that I was feeling. Criteria 2, I felt very affirmed, again, by that, telling me, like validating my feeling that it was understandable. And criteria 3, very soft and gentle, but affirming tone of voice. How'd that one feel for you?
Good. Much kind of smoother and more authentic too. Yeah, that felt good.
Great. How do you feel about moving on to a little bit more difficult one?
Let's do it.
Okay. My son just joined the Army, and I'm so proud of him, but also frightened for his safety for when he's deployed.
Yeah. And I think that makes so much sense to feel really proud and excited of your son, and also really worried for his safety.
Great. To the criteria. Criteria 1, yes. I was feeling different emotions in there, proud and worried. So you definitely addressed both of those and met criteria 1. Criteria 2, felt you deepened, but also affirmed my experience I was having, met criteria 2. And criteria 3, I love that tone of voice you use. It really is very soft, gentle, and nurturing, but still feels affirming, and feels like something that I can ground in as the client. So great job meeting all 3 criteria on that one.
Thanks, Jane. Let's check out the sample response that the book gives for that one.
Good idea. The book has, of course, it must be very frightening to think of him out there on the front lines.
So real just like affirming validation of what they're saying.
Yeah, and I can, really hear that in the, of course. Of course, that makes total sense. Very, very affirming there. And acknowledging that feeling of like feeling frightened.
Let's try a harder one. I'm up for it.
All right. Got to pick one that I can stay in the emotional experience and not laugh. I am so happy you got assigned as my therapist because I just feel so comfortable with you, so warm. I feel like I can just be myself. It's almost a feeling of love.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that, Jamie. I don't know that I got kind of
hard one, right? Hard one. I definitely didn't make it easy here.
Yeah. Let's run it again because I clearly
totally while it's fresh. I am so happy you got assigned as my therapist because I just feel so comfortable with you, so warm. I feel like I can just be myself. It's almost a feeling of love.
I'm so glad to hear that you feel really comfortable here. And yeah, I think fit is so important with a therapist. So I'm really glad you're having that experience with me.
Great. Let's check out the criteria. That was a tough one. Yeah. So criteria. Well, first, actually, I'm curious for you because I was looking at your face at the end of just like, what's your feedback on your response first?
I felt a little lost. Like, I'm not sure. It felt hard to kind of accept the compliment and validate. So I'm not sure that I actually met criteria.
That's like a good kind of like nuance that you acknowledged of like, how do I receive the compliment and meet criteria? So yeah, I think criteria 1, I think as the client, I felt that you felt the depth and intensity of my experience. However, I think you probably could have like articulated and expressed that a little bit more. Criteria 2, yeah, deepening and affirming. I think that is the criteria probably we could focus on when we give it another shot. Because I think it highlighted, like you highlighted the importance of that connection. And it felt almost like highlighting the importance of that connection in general, rather than like validating my feelings that I just expressed like explicitly to you, if that makes sense. And criteria 3, I still think your voice was soft and gentle, but affirming. Might have just heard like a little like of that, like, confusion in your voice, just because this was a hard one. And I think that that'll just like improve just from us doing it a second time.
Yeah.
All right, so we're ready to give that one another go.
Yes.
Okay. I am so happy you got assigned as my therapist, because I just feel so comfortable with you. So warm. I feel I can just be myself. It's almost a feeling of love.
Yeah. And it's so important to feel warm and comfortable in yourself in therapy. And I really hear that with me, in this relationship, you're really feeling that here.
Great. Checking back with the criteria. And yep, criteria 1, capture depth and intensity, met that. Criteria 2, deepening and affirming, met that. And criteria 3, soft, gentle, but affirming voice, met that. So that was another example that met all 3 criteria. How do you feel about checking out the example response for that one? That one I think was a little bit of a doozy.
It felt surprisingly hard.
Feeling so much trust and a kind of love, a wonderful sense of comfort and safety.
So really just like reflecting back how the client's feeling, really affirming.
Yes, affirming. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, this is interesting. I wouldn't have thought this, but I like that this response, it is so succinct and so affirming at the same time. Just really naming the feelings that I was expressing.
Yeah. So how did you feel about this skill in general?
I thought, as the client here, I can really feel the value of this skill in just that affirming piece. Like with those responses that you gave, especially like your second response that did an even better job of meeting criteria, I felt as though you were able to capture my experience, and not just capture and express it, but to do so in a way that also felt really affirming. And it helped me to ground in my emotional experience. So as the client, I can really, really see and feel the value in that skill.
Nice. Yeah. I think it's like one of the skills that is really foundational and pretty simple, not necessarily easy, but I think I can get caught up as a therapist in trying to interpret and do all these big things. But like, this is so important to just validate the experience the client is having right now, to say like, that makes sense. That's understandable. Like that can be really profound just in that. So I appreciate that part of this skill.
And I feel like that's a phrase we're going to keep using, this like simple, but not easy. Yeah. If I remember correctly, we might have said that at another point too. And I think that that's going to end up being like a recurring theme for us in working through these exercises. And yeah, super, super valuable. Were you able to feel when you gave it like a second try? Did you feel like that improved, like the practice helped you be just progressively more comfortable with this criteria?
Totally. Yeah. And I think it was more the comfortability, like the skill wasn't so challenging, but just doing it again, getting your language down, really affirming what is the client saying, practice really helped. Well, thanks for being my client.
Thanks for being my therapist. I just feel so warm and like it's almost like a feeling of love.
James.
Aim.
On that note, thank you for joining Deliberate Practice with Amy
and Jamie.
We'll see you next time.